Good evening, everybody. Imagination, action, transformation. This is how reality happens. Our thinking shapes our doing shapes our being. Ideas are the engine that propels everything. This is a story about how events in Holland about 50 years ago and events in communist Poland about 30 years ago are influencing a serious issue the way a soccer ball is kicked on the fields in Michigan today. What could the Dutch national soccer team have in common with a street protest movement and street happenings in communist Poland? What could connect these two with a youth soccer club in Ann Arbor today? It is not location, it is not the time frame, it's not culture. It is the power of ideas that connects the three and binds them together. Johan Cruyff was one of the best soccer players of all times. In the 1960s and 70s, he and his Dutch teammates in their orange uniforms reinvented the game. Johan Cruyff and his team had a cult following in Poland in the 70s and in the 80s. We truly admired, we loved their style based on imagination, creativity, improvisation, and a sense of fun. Orange Alternative was a street protest movement in communist Poland. In the 1980s, hundreds upon hundreds of young people came out in the streets pretending to be Smurfs, wearing goofy orange caps, organizing happenings. Ultimately, they successfully undermined the communist system in Poland and contributed in a small and funny orange kind of way to the collapse of Soviet Union and the Soviet bloc as a whole. They won a battle against an oppressive regime by avoiding any battles. They won using, just like the team in orange, creativity, improvisation, style, sense of fun, sense of togetherness as their only weapons. In effect, they staged a rebellion by redefining a rebellion. In Poland, we have a very long and well-established tradition of rebellion. For almost 200 years, we have been fighting for our freedom. Those fights lasted almost 200 years. We fought against Russia, we fought against Prussia, we fought against Austria, and you're probably going along with the Russia and Prussia, and then I say Austria, and you're thinking, pastries, waltz. They also had an empire, and we fought against Austrians. Then the Germans, then Soviet Union. Over time, we accepted a rebellion script which demanded that we earn our freedom through suffering and death. Our script for rebellion, which you can see on the screen behind me, and I can almost see here because I don't have my glasses, so I see shapes. It was a self-perpetuating cycle. We would start with protests. These would inevitably be met with excessive use of force, violent confrontation. Then we would have arrests, court proceedings, jail sentences. And with each rebellion, we could generate new heroes, and this would allow us to stage another rebellion to commemorate those new heroes, hence the self-perpetuating cycle. And then something happened in the 1980s. In our collective psyche, somehow we decided that we lost taste for suffering and death. It seemed like a steep price to pay, although it didn't for 200 years before. At about that time, early 1980s, a gentleman called Waldemar Fydrych, which is a mouthful, it's a Polish name, these are tough, the founder of Orange Alternative, that's better, we can say Orange Alternative, he outlined basic ideas for how to fight against the communist regime. the three main ideas that set up Orange Alternative are as follows. Number one, it will be imagination, not suffering and death, that will lead us to freedom. Number two, our best weapons in a battle against the communist regime will be sense of humor, sense of togetherness, joy, general goofiness. Number three, the communist regime should not be seen as some evil, horrible monster that oppresses us, even though they did. They should be seen as a work of surrealist art. Because only a surrealist artist could have created a system which surrounded us with absurdities. We often talked how we felt trapped inside a Monty Python skit. There is a reason why Monty Python had a cult following in Poland at that time. The favorite word to describe our daily lives was paranoia. So this kind of tells you how we saw our system in our lives. From this perspective, argued Orange Alternative, our politicians, our finest leaders, should not be feared. They should be admired and recognized as superb surrealist artists. After all, they created a system in which millions upon millions of people can enjoy the nonsense from within. By the same token, their defenders, the riot police officers on street corners, should not be seen as mindless, oppressive thugs, even though sometimes they were. They should be seen as an integral part of this monumental socialist, surrealist composition. We should admire them the way we admire paintings of Salvador Dali in a museum. Anger, outrage, violence are a complete waste on communist nonsense. The best way to attack nonsense is to create more nonsense. This way, you will present the regime with a mirror, and hopefully, when the regime can see its reflection, it will collapse upon itself due to its own absurdity. And this generation of compounded lunacy was a fun party. Good time was had by all. Just as Johan Cruyff redefined or reinvented the game of soccer and redefined what good soccer is, Orange Alternative redefined what a good rebellion is. Instead of suffering and death, they proposed sense of humor and fun. Now, imagine you are a riot police officer in Poland in the 80s. You and your unit just got rushed downtown to pacify an illegal gathering. At that time in Poland, any gathering of 3 or more people in a public space acting in a more or less coordinated fashion could be considered illegal. This was an obvious way in which the government was trying to suppress any and all kind of dissent. The streets were unsafe because there was a lot of police in the streets. So there you are, downtown, full gear, you got your club, you got your helmet, gas mask because tear gas is going to be used, you got your shield. You're ready to fight the enemy of the state. And the enemy of the state arrives from around the corner, comes out a group of people, and you look, it's a bunch of kids, they probably are high school and college students. And they are coming closer. It's a little bit weird because they are not marching at you in a menacing kind of way, they are skipping with joy. That's unsettling. But you don't really have time to ponder all of this because they are coming, you have things to do. And now you can see their banners, and you look at the banners, and the first one you see says, "We demand freedom for Snow White." Okay. "Long live fruit juice." Not a problem. "Down with Gargamel." Now they get closer, now you can hear their voices. "There is no freedom without Smurfs," they shout. "Small is beautiful," they shout again. This is really, really weird, but they are right in front of you. When in doubt and slightly befuddled, you go back to your training. You proceed with rebellion script, step 2 and 3. You beat the living crap out of them and arrest them. You feel a little bit better. Things are back to normal, you think. But a new problem arises. Now the regime has to follow up with steps 4 and 5. Court proceedings and jail sentences. So they are not particularly keen on standing in front of judges and the media to explain to the nation, well, this is why we had to convict and send to jail Snow White and her defenders. And there are more questions. Who is Gargamel? And would his demise be a good or a bad thing for communism? There was a lot of laughter during those events, as you can imagine. Is small beautiful? Well, if small isn't beautiful, are people who say it is, are they committing a crime? Do they deserve to go to jail? And if so, how long should they rot in jail? So for the first time, our regime does something that we think makes perfect sense. They cancel steps 4 and 5. No courts, no jails. The Smurfs go back out after 24 hours. That's the new cycle. A non-protest, beatings, arrest, out you go after 24 hours. This is how Orange Alternative achieves 2 big victories. The first victory is rewriting of the traditional rebellion script. Steps 4 and 5 are out. Step 1 is turned upside down. At least 50% of the script is gone, or more. The second big victory is humanizing the enemy. So you are this riot police officer, the Smurfs got released. Well, within a few days, they're marching again. You gotta do what you gotta do, so you beat them up, you arrest them, and then it repeats again. You get to know them. You beat the same person enough times, you get to know them. And you begin to build a relationship. You begin to smile when you see the next goofy banner. And you're not supposed to be smiling on a job. You're supposed to be the mindless thug. So what happens now is the riot police officer, that's you, sorry, the riot police officer looks at that Smurf, and you can see that under this orange cap there is a human being. You made eye contact a couple of times, so there must be a human being there. And the Smurf, looking at you, begins to see a human being behind the riot police shield. This is the beginning of the end, and this is the beginning of a process which allows former enemies, now co-participants in the same new script, to sit down at the same table in '89 and negotiate a peaceful transition from communism to democracy, probably the single most remarkable event in Polish history of the last century. So the old script is out, it's been killed and buried. And this metaphorical killing of the old script is really the only violence Orange Alternative ever committed. Just like Gandhi and Martin Luther King, they were completely and absolutely committed to nonviolence. They staged a revolution without staging a revolution. Let me describe another event. There wasn't a holiday more hated than the celebration of the anniversary of the October Revolution. So to celebrate the anniversary of October Revolution, the Smurfs staged a celebration of anniversary of October Revolution. As hundreds of participants are swarming the center of the city, and it was happening in Wrocław in southwestern Poland, where Orange Alternative was founded. The happeners are swarming in, dressed in silly costumes with goofy props, dancing, singing communist propaganda songs. This was their favorite thing to do. They would hijack communist propaganda and present it like it's a genuine act, and that creates a dilemma for the law enforcement. Making noise with drums, whistles, spoons, and pots, whatever they had. They even built a little replica, not a little, a decent-sized replica, cardboard replica of the battleship Potiomkin to reenact parts of the Bolshevik coup. That was immediately dismantled, and they were immediately arrested. Hugging the police officers and giving them flowers. Complete carnival. The theme of the event was color red. The symbol of communism. So the flyers announcing the event said, please wear something red to celebrate the anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. Red hat, gloves, shoes, anything red. If you can't do that, please paint your fingernails red. If you can't do that, please buy a baguette with ketchup. And with this ketchup, you will be part of the red event. So the kiosk with baguettes is having best business ever. There are swarms of people because there's only one kiosk in the center of Wrocław selling baguettes with ketchup. The riot police is trying to stop it. The owner says, I never had business that good. I can't shut down. Then she runs out of baguettes. This is when the happeners start walking. Excuse me, could I have a baguette with ketchup? No, no baguettes. Could I have a cup of ketchup? Yeah, sure, there you go. How much? Nothing. And off they go to join the revolution with a cup of ketchup. And at this point, the riot, and this is the most brilliant moment of the whole event, the riot police starts chasing and arresting whoever has anything red on them, including the revolutionaries with cups of ketchup. And then they start yelling and shouting, go get the Reds, arrest the Reds, you gotta get the Reds. And this is the moment that Orange Alternative is living for, because we have the communists arresting the communists. It couldn't be better than that. So a great time was had by all. And now I would like to tell you about how all of this, the Dutch soccer team, Johan Cruyff, Orange Alternative, connect with MPSA Crush. MPSA Crush is a youth soccer club which I started in 2005 in Ann Arbor with a group of very, very brave or absolutely crazy coaches who were willing to swim with me against the current. We saw the club grow from 15 to more than 600 players. And this story is a tribute to the coaches who were willing to trust me, crazy as it is, and more importantly, to hundreds and hundreds of players and parents who took a leap of faith, trusted our vision, and who made our club what it is today. So what connects these three things? Well, by now you probably know what I'm going to say. It's the ideas. Commitment to freedom, commitment to creativity, improvisation, sense of fun, sense of togetherness. Ability to use silliness as a serious tactic to achieve important goals. I'm very attached to Johan Cruyff's idea that style and class are more important than results, because style and class are permanent, results are temporary. We play to play, and a game is just a game. It's nothing more, nothing less than that. Winning is fun, but playing well and playing with style and class is way more fun than winning. I am also attached to Waldemar Friedrich's, an Orange Alternative slogan, I am happy, therefore I am. If Orange Alternative with their happenings showed that under very trying circumstances, you can choose to be happy. And if they could do it, I felt we, in our small way, on the soccer fields, we can do it too. No matter what the referees, the league officials, the opposing players, parents, and coaches may or may not do, we can choose to enjoy each and every game. Matter of fact, we probably want to go further and follow the Orange Alternative lead and not look at the referees, the league officials, opposing players, parents, and coaches as adversaries and evil monsters. We may decide that they are co-participants in the same script, and this will make it way more fun for everybody. It's a brilliant feeling when I see one of our teams warm up for a serious game in a serious league. And as they go through their pre-game warm-up routine, they do a hokey-pokey dance, which does raise a few eyebrows. And then they go ahead and they play at a high competitive level. They play well, they play with skill and style and a sense of joy. And more often than not, they win. Because somehow, not that surprisingly, it turns out that competitive success doesn't depend on clenched fists and grim faces and win at all costs attitudes. Orange Alternative was a serious anti-communist movement because they demanded freedom for Snow White, and they said that small is beautiful. Mr. Friedrich, the founder of the Orange Alternative, is a serious political activist because he never ever engaged in politics. He avoided it. Well, not quite true. He actually engaged in politics way after, in late 90s. He ran for, well, first he got crowned the King of Poland by Orange Alternative. There was a big ceremony. Then he ran for mayor of Warsaw, and he hijacked a debate of the candidates there were all these candidates talking, and at some point he never said anything. He just put on the orange caps and started walking. That was the end of that debate. But by and large, he avoids politics. Johan Cruyff was a serious winner because he never ever played just to win. And let me go to the best one. None of it makes any sense, so it all makes perfect sense. And thank you, and may the Smurfs be with you.